You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation.
Welcome to Chief Speaks.
All music performed and produced by Yuya.
Enlightenment and transformation. Enlightenment comes from allowing yourself to journey through the dark shadows of death, the primordial abyss of wisdom's waters. For it is the treasures and mysteries that lie wait in the dark that transform us and propel us to a new enlightened state. One should neither aspire to live in the light nor the dark, but should journey between the two in order to evolve the overall reality into a self-actualized creation. Knowledge is your light as wisdom is your darkness. The bold interplay of the two in your life leads you to an enlightened understanding of yourself and the universe you've created. Male is your enlightenment. Female is your transformation. Child is your evolution. Woman, accept the light into your darkness so it may enlighten you. Man, bring your light boldly into the darkness so that it may transform you. Enlightenment and transformation.
I love you so much because you just don't know what you've just done to me. Thank you so much.
Wow. This is like the best call I've had in ages on BTR.
So this show was meant for me to be able to hear today, and I'm so thankful.
That's his home.
Therefore, now a new pathway has now been cut in order to get to the Almighty, where there may not have been one. So the communication with them, if they have enough power and strength to talk to us, the communication will be very clear.
That's one of the reasons I don't get into the encouragement thing too much, because it starts to become a perpetual alarm clock that we just keep hitting snooze on. I speak to the ascended masters, quote unquote. I talk about spiritual stuff, but I also speak about some very practical, we can do today things.
Be as natural as you can be with your spiritual. You can't always go by your feelings, because your feelings are corrupted. Your feelings are just as corrupted as everything else, your chakras and everything else. You got to know what's beyond you, and that's why we have elders. We can't do everything. You can't get everything out of books or a weekend certification. You can have the most powerful, ancient, oldest, most, as far as you know, truthful tradition in your hands. And if you still have a dirty spirit, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to learn anything. You're not actually going to grow. I try to teach in a way where I make myself obsolete. That's always been my goal, to make myself obsolete.
I really wanted to, kind of big you up. I think you're awesome.
There's a lot of elders out here right now that want to know what's going on. They're not getting on Twitter and stuff like that, but they want to be up on the new stuff. Sit down and have some conversations with them. It's not always about hearing their story. It's also about being news reporters for them and letting them know, like, yeah, this is what's happening right now. They may tell you something about what happened in Charleston that you couldn't even. Your spirituality has to create same spiritual family. Okay, and that family exists first inside of you. You have to express the different expressions of that rainbow coalition of spirits inside of you first. Okay, don't let communities hijack that rainbow. The problem is, when we come into the conscious community, the dudes are doing the same thing that the women are doing.
I just want to say that I really enjoy your show every Sunday, and my friend and I call it going to church. When we call him, we'll be like, "You going to church?" And I'm like, "Where have y'all been at?"
God cannot go against its own truth. So anytime you have an inkling that God is going against its own truth, then God is no longer behaving as God. So therefore, the spiritual community doesn't recognize God. You dig where I'm coming from? Or can we have a new thought? Can we step outside of the books for a second and have a new conversation about hair weaves and wigs? Can we have a new conversation about homosexuality? Can we have a new conversation about vegan eating? It's a good day for an exorcism.
releasing some of these little flicks and stuff and images and videos, and I have tons and tons of them. So one year when I was on the continent, right, I said, I was gonna pretty much film some of my adventures, if we want to call it that. And you hear me shouting out Cape Coast Market underneath my helmet. But a lot of times I find myself in some very beautiful and interesting places, and sometimes even some wild places, which is one of the reasons why I prefer to ride motorcycle over, car, whatever. And because you can just you can dip and dive real quickly and real easily. Sometimes I might be riding down the road and see a path going, up in the bush, and I just boom, make a sharp left, a sharp right, and find myself somewhere real interesting, or just real bushy, whatever. But either way, somewhere unexpected. So I said, yeah, man, I had footage for a long time, and showed some of the family back home, and just now I'm releasing some of these little flicks and stuff and images and videos, and I have tons and tons of them, for the people who are here, for the family who's here, who are contemplating going over. A lot of times we're shown certain images and given a certain impression that it's just inaccurate to keep us from going there. You told about the profundity of all these different diseases and, all these different epidemics and all of these different attacks and instability. And it's just, honestly, it's not true. If it were, I would tell you, So a lot of times there are little techniques and things that individuals will do to keep you away from what's yours, to keep you away from something that could be really beautiful for you. And, from connecting and creating bonds, lifelong bonds that you could enjoy for a very long time. So this is just like a little short clip. It doesn't really show all of it, all of what the continent could be. But it's just like a little, I was on motorcycle, just really going to the market. Actually, I think this run it was some years ago. Just going to the market and getting some things, to fix up and everything like that. So, I don't have a helmet cam, so I just one hand recording with my phone while I'm riding. I know it's kind of crazy, but that's just how it is over there, man. You innovate, man. You learn to make things work, man. If you want to do something, having something, shipped to your house, on Amazon next day, Prime service or something, it's just not really a reality right now in certain parts, of the continent. So you learn to make things work, man. And there are plenty of resources around to do whatever you need to do, So this was just like a little thing I filmed real quick. Like I said, just riding through the towns, riding down the street, just enjoying the day and running some errands, and wanted to share it. But, as a part of Our New Life Global Ministries, many of you know that there's a lot of things that we do all over, not just locally, but abroad as well. And there are things being built. And I've even spoken to some of you about, traveling over and seeing some of the works. And some of you actually already have been over and seen some of the things that we're doing over there, and even met some of the youth that would sponsor and things like that. So, and so you're creating those bonds and those family linkages. And, it's something going forward that I'm going to open up even more to the right kind of people to come over. Because one thing about the continent is that it amplifies everything that's going on with you, So if you're not right, you'll be super not right. It's a very fertile place. And when we speak about its fertility, it's not just, obviously you can see all the greenery. It's not just in its ability to produce crops for physical sustenance, but its ability to produce and magnify and amplify all of the things that are currently in you. So, and especially certain parts, the energy is higher than others, so you go to certain parts, man, and you have a lot of isms that you're bringing, or just a lot of hangups, and, you're going to have some really profound and prolific experiences, and they may not all be pleasant to you, and they may not all be pleasant for the people around you, because a lot of times once you get into that space, all of the demons that have become very comforted by the dysfunction of American and Western culture are not comfortable over there. They start coming to the surface and scratching and itching, and you're looking for certain vices that you cannot find there. You don't have an abundance of sugary sweets and all of the different things, and all of the abundance of the type of drugs and stuff that we have such easy access to, in the Anglosphere or in Western society. So a lot of times you have to deal with your stuff. You come face to face with it, spending enough time there, not just passing through as a tourist, So, like I say, for the right type of people and the right ones, definitely opening up that space and letting the fam see what we have been working on and what's in store for them. All right. So I hope you all just enjoyed this little flash, Of course, this is we're starting off Chief Speaks, and I just figured I'd give this as a nice little intro, something a little different. And of course, this will be on my page as well, which is my Chief Yuya YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Sons of Sankofa, and Sons is with the letter Z. All right. But if you just look Chief Yuya on YouTube, you'll find it and find me and other videos as well. All right. So let's get on with it. All right. Peace. Welcome, everyone. Of course, we are witnessing a new month coming into October, of course, right? And like I said, I wanted to kind of start things off a little differently than how I usually do. Just going through some old footage and whatnot, and I say, yeah, man, fam may appreciate. Be able to appreciate some of the scenery. I don't know how smooth the video is coming through on your side, but either way, it's up on my other. I have a link that's in the chat room for those of you who want to. If it came out choppy or whatever, I know it's already choppy because I'm riding and filming at the same time. Darn near ran into a ditch, like 3 times, but I recovered well, But yeah, man. So we're speaking about the power of identity this month, coming into this new space of a new insight, of course. And as those of you know, and let me be hopefully the first to welcome, all of you new listeners to Chief Speaks, which is a component of enlightenment and transformation. And I'm Chief Yuya. And every month we have a different theme that we cover. And this month we're speaking about identity, and more specifically the power of identity. Last month we spoke about Libra and just what, with that whole balancing and measuring, and the scales of the Libraic energy represent. And it seems that a lot of folks were able to connect with it. I guess we got a whole lot of Libras lurking around. So, a lot of the Libras had reached out and, had said that the segments had really helped them out a lot, which I'm glad for that. That's what it's really about, man. So in any event, and let me get myself a little more adjusted. I'm a little maladjusted right now. Let me get better adjusted. Yeah, man. So, in any event, like I said, we were dealing with Libra last month. And if you can kind of see, if you look at, like, even if you go to Our New Life Global and look at the insights list, which tells you what I'll be dealing with each month, but you might peep the pattern. You might peep the larger statement, that's being made if you look back from January going, to what are we in October? Yeah, to October now, right? And then of course then through December, but you may be able to peep what's being said. It's almost like a sun moving through different constellations, so it's all a part of a larger journey. Maybe, you know what I mean? If not, it's cool too. Either way, like I always say, just go along for the ride, right? So yeah, so dealing with this topic, before we jump on that, I just want to share that we have a men's call today. All right. So for all of you men who are ministry members, wake up. No, but get in on it. We got a men's call today. All right. So I just wanted to put that out there for all of you brothers who are listening, who are part of the ministry. Now, of course, we're still getting those questions. How can I get on the men's call? If you're not a part of the ministry, you can't get in. It's simple, man. It's free. And I don't even pass around a collection plate. Imagine that. I don't have a Patreon thing, or my PayPal keeps telling me, because I'm a quote unquote religious organization, it keeps sending me these reminders about putting up donation links, but I don't really have to. I think we got like one page, for donations. And I do appreciate every donation that comes in very much. Like I tell people, man, that money goes pretty much straight to the continent. And some of the subsequent videos I decided I'm going to show some of the interaction with the fam over there, because like I said, I got hours upon hours of video that I've been taking, not from way back, because I started going to the continent like 20 years ago, but more recent, like video cam, handy cam stuff coming up, to cell phone stuff. That stuff you see on the screen there, I just was on my phone filming while I was riding. But I have stuff that doesn't look so janky. But I have a lot of fam over here, man, that some of them are elders and they feel like they'll never make it over to the continent. So that's the reason why I film so much, man, just to kind of bring them with me in a sense. When I come back, hey, this is what it's like, and this is what we eating over here and things like that. And now it's cool because you have a lot of apps where you could do live video. So like IMO is an app I use over there a lot, and then I can film like live and send it back over here. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, so you got the announcement about the men's call. Now this month we're dealing with like I said, we're dealing with I was going to say liberation. I'm thinking about Libra, but we're dealing with the topic of identity, and this segment or insight is entitled Psychic Identity Theft. And usually when I start a month off, the first Sunday I try to keep it pretty light, and that's for several reasons. One, just to kind of give you an overall cursory understanding of what it is that we'll be building on and chopping up and dissecting and pulling out our Jinsu knives on, and really seeing what's what. But also I like to do that as well, man, because sometimes when you give a little bit too much, you scare people off, and that's never my intention, to scare you off, or like I've said, to try to impress you with the profundity of what's known. That again, that's not the hallmark of a great teacher. It really isn't. I know people think it is, when you're real deep. Hold on a second, let me get some water. Ooh, I needed that. Matter of fact, that was so good. Let me get a little more. All right. So, yeah. So, it's about how much you can absorb, take in, and apply, man. That's really where the rating and the grading should come from, So the first Sunday, I like to keep it kind of light going. So, and speaking about identity, I wanted to speak about just the psychic identity theft, because a lot of times our first interactions, or honestly even traumatizations that we experience, as it relates to our identity, our projected identity, and our supposed identity that sometimes we hold inside of our heads, a lot of times it comes at a very young age, where we first encounter some of our struggles, with identity, and maybe even some of the attacks that we suffer with identity. Like I've said before, sometimes it's as simple as someone saying, "You're just like your mother," or "Look at you, just like your father," or someone saying something like, "You have such dexterity, you should be a surgeon. You know, why would you want to be a carpenter when you could be a lawyer? You know, things like that. And of course, those are our first forms of hex that are put on us. You know, we always think of somebody's chopping up a chicken somewhere, you know, or taking some goat horns and filling those goat horns with ash and powder, and you know, think, nah, man. You know, a lot of times your first hex just come through the suggestions that are implanted in your mind that then go on to become your internal fantasy. And fantasy and identity are very closely linked with one another, you know, and there's different theorem that exist around that. And in particular, when I say fantasy, I'm speaking about pH fantasy. So PHANS, PHANTASY, excuse me. I lost my place there, you know, as opposed to FANTASY. Okay, so you have two different forms of fantasy, and the one that we usually look at that's you know, we develop through the psychosis, through our psychology, is the pH, you know, PHANTASY, that form of fantasy. So if any of you have ever seen those two different spellings and didn't know why sometimes they're spelled differently, that's the reason. You have different forms of fantasy, and there are some theorems that really share that most of what we call our internal functioning or our internal thought is in fact fantasy, right? You know, there's a lot of internal fantasizing, and if you think there's a truism to that, because when we kind of travel through the different components of our own mind, or even what we consider to be our internal identity, we can't really place our finger on any of them. So in reality, they're all kind of imagined, you know, in truth, you know. So like when you have the fantasy, like I said, the PHANTSY, that's considered like an unconscious fantasy. You know, those are the things that are lying within your subconscious and that are working inside of you that you fantasize about, that create what you consider to be your thinking pattern. And then of course you have the FANTASY fantasy, which is, you know, you might just sit somewhere and fantasize about something or someone or whatever, right? So there's two different kinds of activities that are going on inside of the mind, and these are the things, some of the things that make up your identity. Now, let me share this too. It's an important point. As much as I've always loved sociology, psychology, even, you know, economics, and well, just I love all subjects. So let me just skip skip the rigmarole. But in particular, I've always had a keen fascination for psychology. There's a point I want to make here, is that psychology is not universal, even though it's taught from a universal sense. You know, it's not universal, you know, because our psychology is directly related to our history, and we all have a different history. You know, many ethnic groups around the world, we even have different originating stories or origin stories. So if we have separate origin stories, then we absolutely have separate histories, you know, because our origin stories are going to reflect how we think we came to being. You know, if we came to be through anger and through destruction, or through violence, you know, or through one person toppling another person, you know, a son killing a father in order to take a throne, or if it was an act of love, or whatever it is. But that's going to dictate what we consider to be our personal history to be, which is going to dictate what our psychology is going to be, which is stacked upon that history, right? Or our interpretation of said history. So, you know, the concepts that I'm speaking about are not necessarily absolute, in a sense where, you know, like even when we talk about dream interpretation, a lot of times when people call in and say, well, Chief, what does this mean? And you hear me say, what does it mean to you? Because a white dove doesn't mean the same to everyone, especially for those who know, well, man, a white dove ain't nothing but a pigeon. You know, and man, I can't stand pigeons. They, you know, they defecate all over my car. Okay, well, that's a part of your history. So your interpretation is going to be different, you know, as opposed to, let's say, if you were a magician or a magician's assistant and you had to work with the doves every day, you'd have a more intimate connection and understanding of what that dove is, you see? So psychology is the same thing, man. You know, everyone and everything is designed um, on the planet with its own grouping, and we can owe that to Oshun, because Oshun is the one that creates that spirit of nationalism and that spirit of separate pride, that spirit of national pride. So it's because of Oshun that you have white pride, you know, and white power. And it's because of Oshun that you have black pride and black power and red pride and red power and yellow pride and yellow power, right? You know, and obviously anyone who allows themselves to be classified and coded by a color is a fool anyway. But, you know, I'm just using those terms because those are the terms that we've heard so much. So that's where it comes from, you know, from that sense. First, Eshu segregates and says, okay, this over there, that over there. That's segregating energy. And then Oshun says, well, while you're over here, you might as well enjoy it. You might as well be happy about it. You might as well be proud about it. You see, so that's where those two kind of, you know, that Eshu and Oshun vibration, how they interplay in the making of nations and in the making of national history, you know. And of course, again, when you're making that national history like there, you're making a national psychology. You're making a way of thinking, a way of being, a culture, and each one is going to be different. You know, now of course there are some commonalities, you know, to the human psyche and the human physiology. You know, for the most part, we all breathe. You know, we all we take in and we all expel back out in some form or fashion. You know, so for the most part, you know, and I understand that some of us even may have different kind of medical conditions where, you know, we're just designed differently, you know, as a result. But like I said, the activity of the mind a lot of times is very difficult to universalize it, and you don't need to. You know, sometimes when you have someone teaching you, the beauty of it is not to fill your head with the ideas that the teacher is giving you, but to expand your thinking with the new ideas that have been presented to you. That's why I said a lot of times when you find yourself in a rut, you find yourself stuck in terms of your own personal creativity, or if you're an artist and you're experiencing, you know, just you're not inspired, man, go read different religious texts. You know, learn about different religions, because then you're learning about different psychologies, which will open up different parts of your own psyche. So this is no different, right? So going back to this concept of you know, psychic identity theft, the reason it kind of came to me late last night, you know, because I was going to just say the power of identity part 1 and just push forward. But and I thought about it. I said, you know, a lot of times people end up taking on certain identities that are transferred to them, and they don't know how or why. Or sometimes we end up depositing and flowing our own psyche and our own energy into other people, and we don't realize that we're doing. We don't realize why we do it, so forth and so on. You know, so like what made me think about it, actually, I was watching an old clip of someone debating with Bill O'Reilly, and I could see how when they were speaking to Bill O'Reilly that they were attempting to change his mood, you know, to change his perception and his thought by giving them how they felt, you know, and that's a form of transference. Now we have different forms of transference. We'll get into them as we go, you know, but you know, a lot of times, and I'm sure some of you are akin to this term, you've heard people say you're projecting, right? Or you might have told someone that you're projecting, right? And from a basic sense, we know projecting just means that the way I feel about something, I'm trying to superimpose it on you and say that this is how you feel about it, right? So projecting is just a, you know, a shortened term that we use for transference projecting, or the projection of transference projecting of identity, right? Or transference projection of identification. And all this really means is that there are certain ideas that I may have unreconciled inside of me, you know, or there could be certain feelings and emotions that I have inside of me that I don't want anymore. I haven't reconciled them inside of me. I don't want them. So what I then try to do is evacuate those feelings or purge those feelings from me into a container. And usually that container will be another person, right? For some, you know, when they come from a religious perspective, they have this idea that I'll bring it to the cross, bring it to that rugged cross, whatever I'm feeling, whatever hurt, whatever pain I'm going through, I'll bring it to the cross. There was a gospel artist years ago by the name of John P. Key. Well, he's still out, but he had a song, I think, what was it? Bring It to Jesus. Problems are bring it to whatever you're something. I don't know, man. I don't remember that. But either way, the whole point of the song was whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, bring it to Jesus. Right? You know, and that's a part of the fantasy, right? That's a part of the fantasy that we talk about. You know, like so I said, even if you dismantled the idea of a Jesus figure, what you could do within 2 minutes, you know, it ain't that hard to do. It wouldn't matter because there's an internal pH. There's an internal fantasy that's going on that's always going to still create that type of image. So even like when we get into our consciousness, we get deep, you know, we get oh, that's the name of the song, Zach, Lay My Burdens Down. That ain't the name of the song. Is it? Oh. But either way, when we get into that space, man, where I just glanced in the chat room for those of you wondering, what is he talking about? You know, I'm always halfway glancing in the chat room when I'm speaking because sometimes my sound goes out or it gets real staticky or choppy, and they'll send me a bunch of smoke signals. So I try not to take my eyes off it for too long. Get some more water. So yeah, you know, yeah, okay, he's saying it's one of the songs. Yeah, lay my burdens down, bring it to Jesus. You know, even the altar call, whatever you feeling, whatever you go, you lay it here. You know, all right, cool, whatever. But the bottom line is that's just transference. It's some things that I have that are locked inside of me, or I feel they're locked inside of me, and I don't want them anymore. So one of the insidious things that we do a lot of times is we stomp on and we stamp all over someone else's identity projection in order to give them a part of ours. See, and that's a form of identity theft, but it's a weird kind of theft because it's like going into the store and it's reverse theft. You're not taking the candy bar out the store. You're actually putting the candy bar that you had in your house that you don't want anymore, and you're giving it to the store. Well, y'all figure out how to inventory this. You know, it might not even have a barcode on it. It might be a homemade candy bar that didn't come out right. So you go give it to the store because you don't feel comfortable processing it. You don't feel comfortable eating it. So you give it away. So a lot of times people will do that in their interactions with us, right? They'll be feeling a certain way, and it could be something like this. You could be talking to someone, and I think I've brought up something similar before, and they might say something like, wow, you sound really angry, right? And you're like, no, I'm not angry. No, but I'm just sitting there. They'll say something like, well, you don't hear yourself. You don't hear how you're saying what you're saying. No, I hear myself. I'm not angry. I feel good. Well, you're just not in tune with your emotions. You see, they'll keep forcing this because they're angry. So they'll keep forcing it into you and on you. And then what will happen? Eventually, you'll become angry because of what they're forcing into you. And in that moment, once you become angry, you become a receptor for anger. You see, because now you're tuned into that frequency, and then what they do is they can deposit the rest of their anger into you, and they walk away skipping. And you know, sometimes you got people like that who like to start trouble. I have a good brother of mine on the continent. He says that a lot of times when I'm dealing with certain village politics, and he'll say, yeah, you know, Baba, some people like trouble, but they don't like trouble. And the first time he said that to me, you know, on the continent, you got all these proverbs, you know, and I'm like, what the heck you talking about, man? You got to tighten up on your English, you know. And then I thought about it. I said, oh, I know what you're saying, you know. And what he was saying, and we laughed about it, is that people like to see trouble. They like to start trouble. But when it comes back to them, they don't want any trouble. No. They don't want to be a part of it, but they like to instigate it. So that's what, you know, what he was saying. Some people like trouble, but they don't like trouble, you know. So you have that a lot of times, you know. So people will create trouble, or they create confusion and calamity because sometimes they want to be the solution, right? Sometimes they want to come and be, after they get you nice and riled up, they come back and then they'll say, listen, I don't want to argue. You know, I understand that you're angry, but that's just not where I'm at right now. You know, I just wanted to have a peaceful conversation with you. You know, real evil, devilish stuff like that, man. You know, they'll create situations, and they'll create certain circumstances, and then when you're forced to respond to those circumstances, they then start to cry victim. You know, I was watching a video like that recently, on social media, where there was a woman who was trying to beat the mess out of this man. She was kicking his car and stuff like that. And then she was trying to punch him. And he was, the guy was tall too, man. He probably was like 6'2", 6'3". And this little woman with no shoes on, I don't think she had any socks on, barefoot, is trying to kick him and punch him and mother effer this, mother effer that, mother. And he's like, stop it. It was an older guy too. And then you saw like a clip after where I guess she must have really, like, because she was already hitting his car and trying to hit him. I guess she must have connected, and she might have clocked him, and that was it. So then you just see her on the ground, and he's holding her by the back of her neck. He's like smacking her a little bit, but not trying to knock her out. But he's saying, "I'm a grown man. You can't put your hands on me like that," and this and that. And then she just starts screaming at the top of her lungs, like one of those "help me" screams. And the guy who was filming, she was like, "You getting all this? You getting all this, right? You getting all this, right?" So that's an example of that. So you transfer your violence over to me, and then when I respond in kind, now you're trying to act like you're the sheep like victim. You see, so that's a form of identity theft, because what's happening again is that it's like a reverse theft. Someone is trying to project or send the mental representation that they have of themselves to you. You see, and as a result, of course, there's a splitting that comes in. There's a interjection of your own thought. There's an interjection of your own identity where you're saying, well, man, I'm moving like this. I'm feeling like this. This is the way I want to feel today. And then someone sends their identity into your space now, causing you to behave differently than what you would have. But it allows them a release. Oh, I needed to get that out of me. I didn't know where I was going to send that. I didn't know where I was going to put that. And of course, again, like I said, people use that in religious sense, and the interesting thing about it, again, it's just you're depositing your fantasized subconscious feelings and thoughts and ideas into another fantasy that only exists inside of your subconscious. So that's why a lot of times people will get into certain religions and stuff, and they may have been nasty people before. And then after they get deeply entrenched into the religion, they become nasty people in denial. You see, they're just as nasty. But now when it's brought up, they can say that God knows my heart. Because I've projected and left all my nastiness with my God. But the truth is that God is a fantasy inside of your own brain. So you've literally redeposited your nastiness back inside of yourself. Literally. You see? So, well, let me not say literally. I hate when people use the word literally. Figuratively, you've redeposited your nastiness back inside of your brain. And there's a certain developmental sequence that one goes through when they start to live out these unconscious fantasies inside of themselves, which sometimes they relate to thinking process. They say, well, I'm thinking about it. And then you're fantasizing about it. You're not really thinking, because thinking doesn't take that long. Thinking is quick. When you speak to someone and they get quiet, I'm thinking. Nope. Your fantasies are kicking in. You see? And I know a lot of you speaking have probably said, man, he said that to me before. Sometimes when we've done readings and sessions and been on the phone and you get quiet, I say, what are you doing? Because I know in that moment you're dismantling the sequence out of that space that I'm giving to you. Your ego is dismantling it. Some people do that through questioning. Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you. Don't ask me a bunch of stuff. And some people do that through this false form that they call thinking. That's not really thinking. It's fantasizing. Like I said, thought is very quick. You ever and different generations call it something different. Some people call it cracking. Some people call it cutting ass. Some people call it playing the dozens or doing the dozens. You know, when you are with a friend and you're going back, or a non-friend, but you're going back and forth and you saying stuff about each other. You're roasting each other, right? You see how quickly we do that? You know, how quickly you come up with something witty because you're in the moment, you're laughing, you know, you're channeling and you're thinking really quickly. Thought is quick. I'm just giving you a real primitive example, but thought is real quick, man. Outside of that, we tend to just fantasize, man. Most of our thought processes are based upon fantasy. You know, even if, let's say, for instance, if you see a mouse in your house, right? What's your first thought? It's gonna crawl up my pants leg. It's gonna jump up and bite me in the eye. You know, I've been in cars before, you know, because New York City, you know, we have world famous rats. You know what I mean? There's no secret to that, right? You know, been in the cars with people, man, they see a rat and lock the door. Because they really think somehow the rat is going to climb up the side of the car and open the door handle. And come inside and obviously do something malicious to them. That's what the rat is thinking about. You know, like the rat is just going down the block, looking from side to side, like looking to see, you know, if anybody left any cheese or any peanut butter in their car. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to break into that car and get that food, you know. But you see, that's the internal fantasy that goes on inside of a person's mind. You start to fantasy and you really think you're thinking like, nah, let me lie. Just in case of what? Just in case what? Nah, just in case it can't open your door. And I don't think it would try to open your door. Right? There's enough garbage and food on New York City streets. It doesn't have to be inside your car. But you see, a lot of times our internal fantasies are fueled by some very interesting things. You know, when we look at, for instance, the Freudian model, and again, I want to reiterate the disclaimer that I gave earlier in terms of not necessarily striving to universalize our psychological stances, but learning different forms of psychology to just learn how different people think, right? That helps you, man. It helps you to navigate the world. It's like learning different languages, you know, and it helps you to understand why people do the things that they do. But if you even look at the Freudian model, where you have like the super ego, the ego, and the id, you know, you have a similar kind of thinking there. You have a similar kind of thought there, where the ego is almost like what we would call like your heart chakra in his model, right? And then you have the id, which would be like the root chakra, and the super ego would be like the crown chakra, because in that particular model, you have a pull or a hankering between the primal instincts of the id, which is like movements towards sexuality, your libido, just your instincts, the things that make you aggressive. And it doesn't really evolve. It's almost like a child that just wants certain things or feel it needs certain things, and it never grows up beyond its desire, you know. So it's always there from the beginning. As soon as a baby is born, the id, you know, is present. You know, that's the idea there. And then you have the idea of the super ego, which is almost like the opposite of that, you know. And the super ego is where we now get into our higher values, you know, where we start to look at, you know, our morality, or even sexual morality, where we start to look at the components that comprise a society, and our desires and our movements towards being better people, and the development of a conscious, you know. And that's not right. You know, it's almost like if you look at some of the old, well, I don't know, I'm sure they still, I don't watch TV, so, but you know, sometimes you have the idea of like an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other, right? So that's the idea though, right? So you have an angel on one shoulder, you got a devil on the other. So the devil in that sense would be like your id, or really it's the it. It's kind of funny because you have that movie It that they remade recently, you know, but the devil aspect, or that primal aspect, is your it, or your id. It's the same thing, by the way. It's the same word. ID, id, and IT, it. All right. Little fun fact there. But then you have the other aspect of the superego, which is like your angel. It's like your godly aspect again that has an image of what it is that you're supposed to be in life, and has an image that it maintains in a picture of how you're supposed to treat other people, and how you're supposed to behave among other people. And it has a sense of pride, and pride becomes the reward for doing the right thing. Pride even becomes the reward for when you can punish your id. So I know, look at, because it's all internal. It sounds a little crazy, but psychology can be crazy. So you have this God inside of you that fulfills you with the sense of pride when you punish and shun the devil inside of you. Right? So what happens is that sometimes people project their own ids, or their own it, or their own infantile root chakra desires onto other people. So what they do, in order to feel a sense of pride, they project their stuff onto you first, and then they punish those things that they just projected onto you. They shame them. They speak against them. They say, well, that's why I don't do that. That's why, oh, what you over there? You drinking? That's why I don't drink. But good and well, you wanted to drink. And I might not be drinking. I might have a glass of water. Like how I keep pulling from this water. Somebody might be saying, that ain't water, cheap drinking. That's probably rum. That's because you want rum. You see? So you'll shun that aspect of you. You project it onto me so you can feel a sense of pride, because pride is the reward of the superego. That's all it really gets. Now, the balancing, let me get some more of this water. Yeah. Oh, that feels better. So the pride and of that super ego, or ego, I'm about to say negro, the super negro. So the pride of the super ego and its balancing that it does with the it, or with the id, is held at a fulcrum point, or a balancing point, called the ego. You see, that's in your Freudian model. So the ego always has to make a decision of how to balance, its higher moral aspects, and how to balance its lower base desires. Because the lower base desires are going to be there, but as they grow and as they go up higher and higher, it goes from lower base desire to a sense of identity, right? To a sense of, separation. That's the ego aspect. And then the separation grows into, I want to be better. I want to be a better person. I want to be known as a better personality in society and my family, and all kind of places like that. But like I said, one of the reasons why I offer the disclaimer that I offered earlier in terms of defending your psychic identity, because one of the things that happens is sometimes when we do universalize our psychic identity, we take on the story of someone else. Like, for instance, Freud really pivoted strongly on the idea of the Oedipus complex. Okay, I'm not sure if too many of you know about the Oedipus complex, but it was basically just from a play called Oedipus Rex, and it was a Grecian play, and basically the play was about a young boy who, when he was basically an infant, his father banished him from the kingdom, from his kingdom, and he didn't really know who he was. So later on, he comes back and he kills his father and ends up marrying Miriam, his mother. Okay, so the idea of that Oedipus complex is very central to the idea with the Freudian, theology of the ego, the superego, and the id. So the idea of a young boy, and like his thing was usually like between 3 to 5 years old, is when a young boy develops I guess we could say, latent libido or latent sexual feelings towards his mother, but he's afraid to act upon them because he's afraid that if he acts upon them, that the father will then take away his manhood, or the father will then castrate him, right? So according to Freudian theory and the whole psychodynamics that Freud introduced, that this is like a normality of human thinking. But there's a Eurocentricity, in the Freudian idea. So that's what I'm saying. You have to be careful. And the reason I say Eurocentricity, because you have to look at the mythologies of Europe to understand. Like when you look at the mythology of the Grecian tragedies, whether it be the plays or whether it be their actual mythological gods and entities, you'll see this type of action played out. But you don't necessarily see that same type of action played out in other parts of the world. You see, so that's what I'm saying. A lot of times, you have to be careful. That's like when I hear people say, like, well, women are like this or men are like that. Yeah, there are some commonalities, but we have to be able to separate our histories, because our histories will dictate something different. And there are people who have found a direct connection and linkage between history and power, and have figured out how to study the history of different people in order to hold power over them. You see, so I know sometimes, and I've heard this before, like, yeah, Chief, man, I want you to get back into the Orisha stuff, to the Yoruba stuff, which I'm never really far away from, because it's what I practice, with people and train people on and stuff like that, man. But the world is bigger than Nigeria. As much as you don't want to hear it, the world is bigger than Nigeria. In fact, here's a deeper one: the world is bigger than Africa. There's more places to go. There's more places to learn. And even if we look at it as the homeland and the heartland and the place that things spring from, it's still vital to study where it went. It's just like, I'm sure many of you are not necessarily interested in, making biscuits from scratch, all the time, even though that's maybe how we did it back in the days and how grandma did it and how great grandma did it. Some of you are interested in learning quick ways to do things. How can I make grits in 3 minutes? Or what's the new style of music that we're doing now? Has jazz changed? Has clothing changed? Right? Because again, the further we go away from our divinity, the more diversity that we're going to experience. So the further we go away from our divinity, the more diversified the spiritual mind becomes. You see, so there's going to be different forms of psychology that are going to exist all over the place. So even studying something like, the Oedipus complex, and how there's this proliferation, especially in Eurocentric idealism, where it's like everything is phallocentric. It just means everything is kind of centering around the penis. And how young girls suffer from penis envy, but then young boys suffer from penis envy when they experience the pleasure, or they see the pleasure that the father gives the mother, and wish that they could do the same thing. And so, again, and I'm gonna keep disclaiming, because I know, people don't listen as well as they say they do. Because at the end of all those people, somebody would say, but Chief, how can you say that when back in Africa, it'll be something stupid like that after I just said I'm speaking about one segment. And I know it's not nice to say things like something stupid like that, but it is stupid. It's okay. It's okay to call ourselves out sometimes, to say, nah, man, we got to stop doing that, man. That's stupid. Be smarter. When you're learning these things, it's supposed to make you smarter. It's not supposed to just keep you stuck in that same place. But anyway, like I was saying, so the idea of that identity theft sometimes comes in when we take on the story or the psychology of another, or when we allow someone to transfer their flawed or unreconciled spirits into us. See that, and that's a form of spirit possession. When someone, because remember, your thoughts and your feelings are spirits unto themselves. So if I have anger inside of me, or I have lust inside of me that I'm not comfortable with, or I have hurt inside of me that I'm not comfortable with. And I go through a process of projecting and transferring that identity to you. I'm essentially trying to send you my demons. Because remember, when we're talking about the fantasy that exists within, that fantasy, the pH fantasy, is an unconscious fantasy. That's why sometimes even some of those folks, you might say, well, nah, I think you're angry. I ain't angry. I'm not angry. I gave that up a long time ago when I got saved, or when I took my shahada, or when I came into the truth. I gave up my anger. They'll tell you something like that. So now what happens that their anger or their hurt or whatever it is that they're feeling, even though it may be apparent to the rest of us who are sitting here watching and seeing it, it's an unconscious thing for them. It's an unconscious fantasy, PHANTSTASY. Okay. And in truth, those are the more dangerous ones, because they're hard to dig through. They're hard to sequence, but they begin to create an all-encompassing theory internally of what their behavior is and what their emotion is, and the justifications and the rights that they have to respond in certain ways. You see, so the psychic or the psyche begins to kind of function, in a way where it almost runs on autopilot in a sense, because it now already has all of this psychodynamic going on inside of it because of the unseen thing that's happening, man. So a lot of times I know some of you guys reach out to me and you speak about how you're having so much trouble speaking to or trying to teach and convince your peers of certain ideas. Like you've come into some understanding and, you've gotten deep, and you're trying to share it with your people, and they're just not biting it. They're not biting, they're not catching on to it. They're not feeling it. And you can't figure out why. Well, it's the truth. And because you're not aware of the unseen fantasy that's going on inside, you see. And sometimes their sense of loss that they have and their sense of unknowing about what's going on in the world, they begin to send it to you. So you're just as blind as they are. So that's why you may start breaking things down, and they'll respond and say, well, at the end of the day, no one really knows. No, you don't know, mother. No one really knows. Or they'll say something like this, well, that's just something you read in a book. How do you know that the book was right? Someone told you. They could have told you the wrong information, just like you're saying I got the wrong information. You see? So there's always this consistent projection that's going on, and that's only because you're not addressing the unresolved feelings that someone implanted in them a long time ago. You see, someone implanted in them a spirit of ignorance probably when they were children, because usually when we speak about childhood trauma, we're speaking about things that have been fantasized going forward. Like, for instance, something may have happened to a child, but they replay that scene. That's where the feelings come from. So there's an emotion that they were given. It could have been shame. It could have been hurt. It could have been violence. And then now what happens is that projects inwardly. It creates like a cyclone of a fantasy. So now anything that they come in contact with now supports that family, that fantasy. They may have been, raped as a child. So, as they get older, the moment they see somebody look like they're getting ready to take off their clothes, man, they're grabbing sharp objects to kill them with. Because the fantasy is still playing on a subconscious level. And again, like I've said before, oftentimes our logic only is used to serve to support our subconscious hankerings. So if you have these subconscious fantasies going on, even when you start trying to learn, you start spinning knowledge, it's always going to surround what supports the fantasy. You see that in many communities of learning. That's why you still have such strong division, you see, amongst even the men and the women. In some communities of learning, people were not able to be a part of more organized systems because they were rebellious and hard-headed. right? So now they get into other systems of learning. You know, maybe you got kicked out the church or out the mosque because you just didn't want to act right. You weren't raised properly. So now you find something called the conscious community where, guess what? There's no rules. You can act however you feel like acting. You can act a darn fool, and then you can always put a title and a label under it. Because see, one of the problems that we have with identity in the conscious community is that we praise what is different. And that's backwards. We don't praise what's elevated. We just praise what's different. You see? And we think that things that are different are special. And that's not the truth. And as a result, unfortunately, and this is just not the conscious community, this is, you know, all over, but you see a lot of it in that community because people should know better. So as a result, you got people who become total attention whores, and they make total imbeciles out of themselves. They become completely dysfunctional, you know, and they strive to do whatever is contrary. You know, how far against the grain can I actually go? And a lot of times they don't understand that the movement against the grain is actually a movement deeper into stupidity. See, so when we say things like that, like, yeah, I do my own thing, I go against the grain, that's because you're an idiot. That's all that means. Now, what does that mean? I'm gonna break it down to you for those of you who just got turned off. So you calling people idiots because they want to do their own thing. What I'm saying is that the grain is natural. Think about the terminology here. The grain is natural. Western society is against the grain. It's anti-nature. So when you say something like, I'm going against the grain, that means you're going with what's destroying you. You see, I'll give you a good example. Let's look at relationships. Let's look at monogamy versus plurality. Western society tells you to practice monogamy and to get married. It doesn't work, but you do it anyway. And then you even pride yourself in saying, you know, yeah, man, a lot of people out there, they can't settle down with one person, but you know, I'm going against the grain, you know, and I'm really committed myself to one person. No. Like you think you're going with something that works, but you're actually going against what actually works. Monogamy is not a natural form. I know a lot of you guys don't like when I talk about it, but I don't care what you like. I've had people say that to me before. Yeah, I like when you be teaching, Chief, but why do you know, sometimes you start talking about plurality and stuff. Why you talk about that? Well, fool, listen. If you didn't tell me what to speak about before, and you like the content I was talking about before, what makes you think that this other stuff that I may talk about that you don't like, that you can control that, or that you have any awareness about that? Obviously, if I was teaching you something in one area, that's because I know something that you don't know. So it would be asinine when you start to feel your demons get itched and scratched and say, but why you have to talk about that? Well, you didn't give me the sanction to talk about the things that helped you in one area. What makes you think I need your sanction over here? I don't need it. And if I needed your sanction, if I needed you as bad as most of you need me, I would be ineffective. You see, that's why you have so many fake leaders out there in the community, quote unquote. That's why there ain't no damn community. But that's why you got so many fake leaders out there, because they need you. They need your approval. They need you to call them king and queen and princess and chief and all of that. They need that so bad. And whenever a leader needs the community as bad as the community needs that leader, that's not a real leader, man. They need to sit their ass back down. The sun doesn't need the earth. You see, the earth needs the sun. That's just the way it goes, man. That's the way it is, man. So no, I don't need you. I don't need your approval. If I did, I would be ineffective, trust me, because then I would be tap dancing around what really needs to be said. Or most likely, I wouldn't even be allowed into the places where I've learned the things that need to be said, because my need would supersede me. You know, it's like when you're in a relationship with someone and they tell you they love you, but you can tell that profession of love is only about some manipulation. You see, I love you. That's a claw. That's a hook they want to put in so they can start making demands later based on how needy they are. So you tell them from the beginning, no, don't even, we're not even going there. Keep that to yourself. Because you know what it means. You know that their quote unquote love or their affection comes with a lot of obligation. You see, it's like when you eat a meal from someone, you can tell if it's made with love or if they're eating it because or if they made it for points. You know, you can tell by the way they give it to you. You know, if they're giving it to you because they just care about you and it's just a natural, you know, it's just second nature, or if they're trying to get points. When they're trying to get points, like when you're in a restaurant and, you know, there's nothing more annoying when they bring you the food and they stand over you and watch to see if you're enjoying it. Man, get out of here with that. I can't digest my food properly and you standing there asking me if everything's all right and then watching how I chew. It might be something in here that I don't like that I'm gonna spit out. You know, do you want to see that too? Yeah, I'm playing around, but you know, it's the same thing though. So that sense of identity gets warped when you don't know your character and your position in and outside of the community. So a lot of times you don't know that when you have all of these internal fantasies going on that you're thinking a thought inside of you and you haven't really tested and tried them externally. I'll give you guys an example. When I was younger, I had a fantasy about the African village. I had a fantasy about the Melanoid community. And these fantasies that I had internally, I would project onto other people because I didn't really want to honestly take out the Jinsu knives and dissect them for what they were. So I would just assume them onto other people. You see, like if it goes down, I know I can count on this one. You know, even though I that was never tried or tested, you know, or we're gonna get some land and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that and that, right? All internal fantasy, because at that time I needed that idea to be true. I needed it to be true. When I saw what was going on with my people and the dilapidated state that our social structure was in, I needed the idea of us all wanting to be and do better to be true. I was dependent upon that idea. I wasn't mature enough in my growth, and I wasn't mature enough in my revolutionary stance to accept that some people like it the way it is and some people don't. But there's not going to be this mass thing where you just put a signal up in the sky, the black fist, you know, like the bat signal. You're going to put a black fist up in the sky and then everyone's going to drop what they're doing and then come over and, you know, to where you're at. And you know, we all going to just live in Shangri-La. You know, it's not going to be like Palmeiras, you know. So I had to come to my own acceptance with that by taking that exact same fantasy that I had inside of me and putting it on the outside of me. So what did I do? I bought some land, you know, enough land for a lot of people. I established certain things independently and this and that. I'm going to go through the whole list. But I gave that fantasy an opportunity to be real. And what I found was the truth. I found the truth. And then I had to work from there. Now, I could have chose to ignore that truth and go back into the fantasy. I could have done that. But I said, no, we're going to work forward with what it is now, with what I'm seeing now. And the truth is, that truth came with a lot of hurt and anger. It wasn't a smooth thing. Like, you know, I'd invested all this money here, but it's cool. You know, it is what it is. Whatever, whoop, whoop. You know, I keep it playing. It wasn't like that. It was these mother effers. These, you know, it was, you know, they keep saying they want to do this. And if we just had land to do this, and if we just have financial resources to do that, and da-da-da-da-da, and they want to come back to Africa, da-da-da. And I done set up all these things for it to happen for them, and nothing. You know, it was some anger there. You know, but the anger I couldn't project onto the people because it was all my own personal fantasy. You see? It was all my own personal fantasy that I had living inside of me. So I had to reconcile where I deposited the anger, where I deposited the hope, where I deposited the expectation, where the image was. And at the end of the day, it was all inside of my own big ass head. All of it. Nobody asked me to buy land and farm equipment and, you know, African Guinea and organic crop. Nobody asked me to do any of that. I fantasized that out there somewhere, someone was asking me to do that. You see? So my choice was I could have projected that questioning or that query or that need onto someone else that, yeah, you I'm here because you need me to be this. Or I could have taken an honest look in the mirror, which I did, and said, nah, player, this was what you wanted to do. This was your ego. You see, you wanted it to be this way because you were unable to reconcile the truth of what really is going on with your people and what you need to do to serve them. Because it ain't this for right now. Maybe later, but it's not this right now. Because you haven't even reconciled who your people are yet. So even that you have a fantasy about. You see? Now I'm putting my own personal stuff out there because, well, hey, that's what you have to do sometimes. But it's also to, you know, for those of some of you who may have gone through similar, to understand that you're not alone in that. A lot of us do that. That's just a part of our psychological development. And sometimes we have a collection of maladaptive defenses that live inside of us that seek for survival. And those maladaptive defenses create a false theoretical orientation inside of us, you know, where we can't really see what, you know, we live in a fantasy. We can't really see what's truly going on, what's really happening. Like, you know, when you hear me, I said it before the last segment, when we did the student panel. I said, yeah, you know, boom, boom, boom. You guys can call in, but yeah, it'll probably still be the same 4 people. Now we had an extra 2. I think Dietrich called in and Sister Michelle called in. You know, but we got over 3,000 students in Sadula House, and it's the same 4 or 5 people who always call in. Now that's the reality of what is. Now I don't say that to say, yeah, and I'm upset about that. No, I know my people. I know most of us listening are here to follow. They're not here to lead. They're here to follow. So for those who are consistently putting their foot forward to say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what we can do. This is what I'm willing to do. Then they have to take a leadership position, you know, and it's okay to say, you know, either you get down or you lay down. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I try to share that sometimes with the people, male and female alike. Some of you females are alphas and you still trying to bring the sisters together. Man, don't bring the sisters together. You tell the sisters where they need to be. If they want to bask in the cool waters of your alpha female goodness, this is what they need to do. Period. You see? That's how you got to do it. Because some are just here to follow. Everybody ain't here to sit at the round table. There were only 12 spots at the round table in Camelot. You know, there were only 12 spots there, man. So everybody can't sit at the round table and have equal say, you know. So I would say, you know, in many instances, man, you know, those of you who can recognize like the story I just shared and said, yeah, I've been in that situation. And it may have been bigger than what I just shared, or it may have been smaller. I know some people who've tried to start stores in their community. Some, you know, you guys have spoken to me about that. That didn't work out, you know, and I could relate to that too. I had an African art store for a little while. You know, it did but it didn't do what I imagined it could have done, you know. Some of you have tried to just, you know, initiatives like homeschooling initiatives or movie nights and stuff like that, and nobody shows up, you know. Well, this is the reality of what is, man. You know, so now we have to make what we call mid-course corrections, you know, and you say, okay, well, either I can choose to stop, keep living in the fantasy, or redirect my path based on an enriched view of who it is that I'm looking to indiscriminately work with. And maybe now I need to start to be a little bit more discriminating now that I can comprehend some of the bizarre behaviors that are around me that I didn't really want to accept. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with that, you see? So a lot of times when we speak about psychic identity theft or psychic identity theft protection, sometimes we have to protect ourselves from ourselves. We have to protect ourselves from our own internal fantasy, because the internal fantasy as a product of the ego is always waiting. It's always willing to go back. Like I could go back into that space and try it again and this, that. This is the reason why I didn't have the retreat this year. If you remember, I said, I canceled the retreat. Now, a lot of people had clicked and said, yeah, they wanted to be a part of it. But I said, do I really want to do this retreat again this year? No, because I got the same people participating in everything. Whenever we put a call out for leadership in certain areas, the same people. So why the heck am I going to go through all of this work? Because it's a lot of work, and work with all these people and do all these consecrations for these people and stuff like that. And they not even participating like that. I'm no one's mule. So no, I ain't doing it. It wasn't an angry decision or anything like that. It was an intelligent decision. It would be unintelligent for me to continue to work on a certain premise that just doesn't exist. You see? So yeah. Sometimes we are the progenitors or progenitors of our own personality disorders and our own maladaptive defenses, and we are maladaptively defending ourselves from our own superego's desire to pull out of some of this thinking. Now, of course, we're looking at 3 stages, from the id, the ego, and the superego. But there's something that exists beyond that, man. And the call to purpose is what really should be shaping identity. You see, so if I know my purpose is to teach, or my purpose is to teach and to lead, then my identity will be shaped by my commitment and my devotion to that purpose. You see, and someone may come along and say, oh, but Chief, you should think about doing this. Or matter of fact, a brother told me recently, because he had seen years ago, I used to teach Microsoft certification. When I got out of IT, some of the contracting positions that I had was I used to teach engineering, for Microsoft and things like that. And I ran into someone who was in one of my classes. I was real happy for him because now he's teaching, and we were just talking and, talking about money. And I was giving him some pointers on, how to squeeze more money out of some of these companies. And I was like, yeah, you do this, da, 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 da. And then I shared with him what I was making. Because now that, he's older, he's out of, I could, talk regular. I was like, yeah, this is what I was banging him in the head for. And he was like, what? So he was like, yeah, man, because, I'm thinking about starting up a firm and stuff. I want you to come teach for me. And he was so adamant. He was like, because your techniques for this, da, 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 da. And I was like, yeah, but that, I'm kind of doing something a little different now. Because I didn't explain everything because he wouldn't really get, what I was saying. He's a big time church guy too. So I didn't even want to, I didn't want to destroy the moment, by saying, yeah, by the way, I've been doing voodoo. Not that I would say that, I'm joking, but so I was like, yeah, that would be cool, bro. But you know what I'll do? I'll send some people your way who I know are looking for work. And he was like, nah, I really need you to, So even though he was reminiscing, with me with the history, you see the history of that identity that I had as a teacher who, helped so many people to get jobs and things like that, and to, extend their career in information technology. That was an identity that exists down there in my history, but I wasn't allowing this current identity that I have to be stolen by the moment. And I'm not so foundated on this current identity where it's like I can't change, because I'm always doing something different, as you guys notice. But in terms of the identity that's been created behind purpose, my purpose at this point is not to teach IT. Now, when I'm on the continent, I do a lot of technical teaching. You see, I do it over there. And how much do I get paid for it over there as opposed to what I got paid for it to do it here in the States? I don't get paid anything to do it over there. I do it for free. And 9 times, well, I'm going to say 10 times out of 10, the equipment that I'm teaching on is equipment that I bought myself. You know, so I might go to a place and bring, 15 tablets or 15 laptops, or sometimes more. Sometimes it's 40 laptops or 40 tablets that I paid for out of my pocket. And then I'll take those and then teach the youth how to use them. Well, if I explain that identity and that thought to this brother, who after telling him how much I was making doing it here, it wouldn't make sense. He'd think I'm bizarre. He would think that I'm crazy. You see? But the purpose that I have drives now what the identity is going to be. You see? So standing and foundating on your purpose and creating an identity goal around your purpose is the trick. That's the key. If you can get it like that, then you'll find yourself in a much more sensible position. You see? I'm gonna scan this chat room real quick. I see a whole lot of stuff going on in here. I know a lot of times y'all just be making jokes. So let's see if there's anything in here that I think should be addressed. All right. I'm just looking at some of the jokes. All right. Esme Forbes says you can never really you can never really get rid of that kind of anger, right? Question mark. Yeah, you absolutely can. Anger is not a force. Anger is a symptom. Anger is a symptom of hurt. So anger is transient. It doesn't really linger around, It's like you've heard me say before, Esme, probably that, yeah, I'm angry. I'm what you would call an angry black man. It may not seem like it, but I channel my anger into things like going to the continent and spending up all my money, to open technology centers and stuff like that. I do that because I'm angry, So anger is a transient force that you could use for certain things, but it's a product of being hurt, right? And then when you look at the hurt aspect, the hurt is a product of being egoic. How could you do this to me? How could you have my people over here on the continent and not have access to certain opportunities? How could you do this to me? It's just ego, So even what I'm doing here now, you notice how many times I use the word I? I got the land and I had the fantasy. It's all ego, right? But there's a healthy aspect of ego where we do have to separate ourselves at times in order to get our thing done for what we came down here for. But the anger itself, no, that's transient. It comes and goes. You can get rid of it, but don't really strive to get rid of it. Like people will say, release all anger. The anger is not the point. You got to go underneath the anger. And while it's there, do something with it. It's like you ever do something like, let's see, it's a good example. Sometimes you might, be carrying some water or something and you spill it on the floor, right? And you use it as an opportunity. Well, heck, I might as well mop this little piece of the floor while I'm here instead of just wiping up the water and just being done with it. So you can use things as they come out, you can make your mistakes into your symphony. Okay, so let's see what else. Zach says, out of the box, mashed potatoes made in 3 minutes. Yeah, them things are disgusting, though. You can smell the chemicals. All right, I'm just going through the chat here. There's a lot of stuff. I don't want to get into everything. Lowe says, as we used to say in the military, people want the rank but not the responsibility. Yeah, that's always the problem with freedom. People don't want the responsibility of freedom. It's just too much for them. You know. Spirit Driven says, Chief channels his anger into being mean to me. LOL. No, I don't, Spirit Driven. Why would you say that? I don't even care about you enough to be mean to you. Lowe says, that's what I observe about most of these leaders, how much and how many times they use I. Yeah. Because look at the I. The I is like an arrow. It's one. It's directed. You know, so when you're in a leadership position, you know, yeah, of course you tune yourself into the needs of who it is you're leading. You know, you got to tune yourself into the needs of the community and things like that. But then there's an aspect of it where there's more autonomy, where you kind of just say, no matter what, this is what we're going to do. It's almost like when you're leading a family and you have to make unpopular decisions for the family, regardless how they feel about it. You see? So you might say, no, we're going to move over here, or we're going to start eating vegan. I don't care how you feel about it. You know, I know what's best for you. I know what's best for you. This is what we're going to do. You see? So as a leader, the I will come in, and, you know, that's part of the balancing act as a leader. You know, you have to kind of sometimes be aware of your public presentation. And sometimes you got to curtail the I. You might say we more when it really ain't a we. You know, like sometimes I may use the term we when I know, you know, let's say if it's a project that we all started on. You know, I'm just giving an example, and we started at 7 a.m. I might still be working at 10 p.m. Whereas 4 or 5 p.m. everybody left to go eat or go home or whatever. But I'll say we, you know, but really I'm the one who thugged it out. I'm the one who got the job done, you know, but it's just a part of strategy, man. You learn certain words of power and certain words that disempower, you know, at times. But yeah, as a leader, you know, you have to be able to make those unpopular decisions and then take the full brunt of the responsibility of it on your own shoulders. That's why you're going to use that I more often. But it's not like the insincere and egoic I sometimes that you hear when people are bragging about everything that they've done. You know, that's a little bit different. Like you're hearing me speak about mistakes. You see, I made my name in the community, like, you know, in the conscious community. I didn't make my name. You know, when people say Baba Haru, it's not really because of my successes. And sometimes they don't even know that what they remember me for was a failure. They don't even know it. I know it. You know, but I made a bigger name for myself being a failure than being a success. You know, I could sit down right now and list out my successes in about 45 minutes. I'm saying lifelong. Failures? Oh my goodness. Oh my god. YouTube would run out of server space. You know, the computers would break down if I had to sit here and list my failures. I've had way more failures than successes. You know, so my name was built upon success, upon failures. You know, so the thing is, there's a difference in the I share a lot of those failures, so some of you can be encouraged. Like, no, you might think I'm here because I've been successful. I'm here because I failed so many times, and with every failure, I've cut off a path. Okay, that didn't work. That didn't work. So there's almost an elation, like, okay, cool. Well, all these ones that didn't work, I'm getting closer to the one that is going to work. You know, so no, you know, taking on that I and that responsibility of your failure, man, that's germane to being a real leader, man. You know, you can't be measured by your wins and stuff. No, man, you got to be measured by how graceful you take those failures, man, and then what you do with them. You know, how you then transcribe that failure into something that can be used for something else. Like, you know, there's a lot of things I know now because of what didn't work. because of what didn't work. I thought I'd be living in Nigeria at this point in my life. Oh man, who's calling me, man? Leave me alone. But anyway, let me check that real quick. Make sure nobody's shot. Ain't nothing. But like I said, man, I thought I'd be living in Nigeria by now, man, and I'd have 400 to 500 expats on the land with me. That was the plan back then. It didn't work, you see. But what happened as a result? Well, my Yoruba is pretty tight, and I can navigate around Nigeria like it ain't nothing. I moved through Nigeria like I'm moving through Brooklyn. I'm moving through South Philly. I'm good. And I have connections over there and friends and family and this and that. But I have all of that because of what I tried to do, because it failed. You see? And I know my people better. 400 or 500 people ain't coming over to live on the land. At least not under my rule. So all of those things were failures, man. So yeah, there's great value in the failures, man. Believe it or not. Zach says, would they be wrong in saying I, knowing how little how little participation there is? I guess that kind of just addresses what I just said. Madam Ma'at said, what if we are expressing anger rather than fear, as many times we have been conditioned to do, when fear is what we are really holding on to? Well, Madam Ma'at, anger is always an expression of fear. You're afraid you're going to be hurt again. So it always is that. You know what I mean? It's always that. So yeah, man, like the expression of fear. Now, if you're saying like, I mean, I know what you're saying, but if what you're also expressing is that like, what if we expressed our fearfulness, like honestly, like instead of saying I'm angry, just saying, no, I'm fearful, right? If things would be a little different. And by the way, that question was a little convoluted, so I might be answering it wrong. There was a question mark on it, but it seemed more like a statement. But, I'm just saying that we're always, that anger expression is fear. That's what that is, man. It's fear. So even like when I say I'm an angry black man, I'm a fearful black man. That's what it really is. I'm fearful. I'm afraid to be hurt again. I'm afraid that some of the atrocities that I've learned about over the years, that they could happen again, because nothing's really preventing them from happening again. I'm afraid that Atlantis will fall back into the ocean. We'll get super dumb again. Well, I don't want to say again, because I mean, but yeah. So let's see. Kalama says, Chief, come on, we want you in Nigeria. I'm always in Nigeria. There's some other things going on. And Nigeria doesn't need Chief Yuya. Daniel Xavier said, that's great, Chief. We do need that. I'm not sure what you're speaking about, but okay, cool. Nahum says, is failure and success the same thing at the core, but it's subjective to a person's situation and how they look at it? Yeah, absolutely. Failure and success are just plateaus. That's all they are. They're just, reaching a plateau. You've been putting your exertion towards a certain thing, and now you're in a certain place. Now, the only difference is that you're aligning yourself with different energies with success or failure. So with success, you're aligning yourself with evolution, and with failure, you're aligning yourself with your descent. But your descent and your evolution, or your descent and your rise, are both necessary. So if we needed to fall deeper into debauchery in order to rise again, and you were able to do something that caused you to fall deeper into debauchery, technically it could be considered a success, because you're continuing the successive line, right? So, success is just, I did a whole segment on success before. Success is just about continuing a succession. That's what it is. It's a succession, picking up where the last person left off, or picking up where maybe even you left off. So here, let me give you a larger example using myself again, talking about I. Ultimately, the vision that I had when I was maybe 7, because I've been on this path since I was about 6, 7 years old. It's the same exact vision I have today. Right now, I tried different things to make that vision happen. Right, but it's the same exact thing. You played us out. I don't want us to be played out anymore. I found out that we were fly back in the days. I want us to be fly again. That's it. That's the idea I had at 6. That's the idea I have today. It's the same thing. You know, looking at Kemet and looking at, well, back then it was more books, you know, but looking through the books and seeing all the gold and all the fly stuff and all of that, and, you know, and like, what the heck happened? And then learning, you know, from there, and then being angry, being hurt at first, like, this is messed up, you know, and then being hurt and then being angry and then working to heal the situation and all of that. It's the same exact kernel of what was desired. So every failure and success has really meant the same thing. It means that I'm getting closer to what it is that I imagined in my mind. So name that question, is failure, success the same thing at the core? Yeah, it can be if your failures and successes are surrounding the purpose it is that you're setting out to do. You know, and again, it could be a simple thing, man. Hey, man, anybody ever work on something in their house, man, and learned how much pressure to tighten something with? Sometimes you learn it, you know, you underneath that sink, you tighten it, you turn the water back on, there's no leak. Oh, come on, y'all. Excuse me, there's no leaks, right? And sometimes you over tighten and you pop that ring. Bap! Now there's water and slime all over the place, and you got to replace the whole pipe now. But either way, you're getting better at plumbing. You're becoming a better plumber. It wasn't that the goal to begin with? You know, I'm going to fix this myself. Shoot, I could do this myself. Yeah, you are going to do it yourself. Now, you could go up the rough side of the mountain, or you could go up the smooth side of the mountain. But either way, you're going to get up there. So yeah, that, you know, and answering that, yeah, absolutely, man. They are you know, two sides of the same coin in that sense, man. And you can't be afraid of your failures, man. That's the problem. Sometimes we're so egoic, man. We just can't admit that. Like I said, you know, yeah, man, if you out here doing things, you're gonna stumble and fall. You know, I was sharing that with my youth recently. We were talking about that, and I was like, they were talking about, you know, another young person's parent and some stuff he had said, and they were sitting there listening to this other parent give advice, and my youth was like, man, he wasn't talking about nothing, you know. And I was like, well, he doesn't do anything, so his life is real smooth. You're going to see a lot of messed up things happen to me because I'm out here taking all of these calculated risks because I'm actually doing something in life. But if I just went to work every day and came home and did it, yeah, man, my joint would be smooth as easy breezy. You know, if I lived in that little box, and, you know, but once you're moving outside of that, you're moving with the grain, because the world is not a box. You know, it's nothing in nature that's symmetrical like that, like a box. So going with the grain of the universe, going with the grain of the cosmos, is about exploration, because the cosmos is governed by a baby's mind that we call God. You see, babies are curious, man. They always touching stuff they ain't supposed to touch, putting stuff in their mouth they're not supposed to put in their mouth, man, playing in their own dookie and all that. You know, babies are crazy. And we do some of the same type of things. And when we begin to lose that, we're actually going against the grain of evolution. And we pride ourselves in that. Yeah, man, you know, I got put some money in my 401k, and, you know, man, and I got, yeah, you put it in your 401k because you're too scared to manage your money yourself. You're too scared to make your own investment. So you leave it to your company to do it for you. You see, you think now you're getting in the groove of the culture, and you're going against the grain, player. You're supposed to manage your own currency. You're supposed to manage your own currency. You see, that's like a man needing his woman to pull his thing out and put it inside of her every time it's time for intimacy, because he doesn't know how to get it out of his pants. Because that's a form of currency, your creative potential, your creative ability. You see, you can't even manage your own currency. You're completely against the grain of the universe. I'm just giving a small, and I'm not trying to get on everybody's got 401k. Keep your money in 401k. I'm just using a small example because maybe I should have one of those disclaimers. This is just entertainment. I am not a lawyer or an accountant, but I think you understand the point that I'm saying. Our specialness is with the grain. That's with the grain. Against the grain is your conformity and your desire to take on an identity, just so that your ego can be satisfied. You see, sometimes we live with ego. It's just like sometimes people, they go to the gym, for instance, and they gym based on ego. They don't gym based on effectiveness. I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna lift up every weight in the gym. Now you done blew out your doggone shoulder trying to impress somebody who's probably on steroids in the corner of the room. When that's not what the shoulder needed. The muscle ain't but so big, it only needs a little bit. It's just an example. Let's see. I saw something else in here that caught my attention. Oh, Mama Sadaka said, I say we, quote unquote, even if it's just me, to include the unseen energies. Yeah. Some people do that as well. Like to include, their Egun or the spirits that's around them. Yeah, absolutely. I encourage that. I do similar, even sometimes when I use the term family, I'm still envisioning babies that have yet to be made, babies that I'm still going to make further on down the road. And I know a lot of women sometimes have those experiences where they talk to they're like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to have 2 more children or 3 more children, and I can see them. They those spirits are really strong and kind of lingering around in a sense like that. Nothing wrong with that, because like I said, most of your mental process is fantasy anyway. All right, so I think we pretty much cleared out the the chat. I'm not going to stay on too long today. I actually have to go link up with an elder and be cursed out for a little bit. So I got a real busy day today, and then I have to do some stuff after that. And of course we have the men's call, so I don't want to stomp on that either. But as an elder, I told I was gonna take out for a walk, but the weather's been a little funny, so ain't nothing worse than taking the elder out when like the sun is beating real hard and stuff. Because then you gotta take your shirt off and put it over him like an umbrella and all that. It just gets real goofy, So I was dipping and dodging, but I'm gonna take care of that. But yeah, so that identity theft, man, I want you guys just to give some thought, around that, in terms of how a lot of times we take on the identity of others because they have things inside of them that they haven't been able to resolve. And sometimes it's better just to speak to that. That's why sometimes when you guys write in, or you call in, you ask a question, it seems like my answer is unrelated to your question. But what it is that I'm skipping around what you're trying to give me and going to what needs to be said. Right? That happened recently, and the person, who you are if you're listening. If you weren't so pissed off by my response, but someone had inboxed me a question, and like I told him, this is not a real question because this is not really what you're asking. So I answered to what was really underneath the question, and you know what was said. The usual. Oh, maybe I didn't phrase it properly. Let me phrase it again so you can understand it. I understand it. There's pretty much nothing that none of you are ever going to say to me that I don't understand. I know that sounds real arrogant, but it's not arrogance. It's just truth. I understand you. You don't understand you. That's why you have the internal confusion. So don't try to superimpose your internal confusion onto me. I'm not confused. You ask me a question. This is what the actual solution is. You want an answer to your question, but sometimes I don't want to lower myself to answer a question that has nothing to do with the problem. You know, it's like when a cop pulls you over, they start asking much questions and nothing to do with what's going on. They pull you over and say, "Oh, so where you going?" What the hell does that have to do with why you pulled me over? And then you might answer it. "Oh, I'm going to my friend's house." "Does your friend have a name?" "What?" "Yeah, my friend Todd." "Todd what? Does Todd have a last name?" I mean, it's kind of weird. And then they start trying to be funny, looking over the top of the car. They partner, cracking joke. "Does Todd have a last name?" I mean, is Todd like Madonna or something? Is only one name? "Well, do you need my friend's last name?" "Get out the car, sir. Sir, get out." That's all you wanted to do in the beginning, man. Why don't you just start there? You just want to try to beat me up. So let's start from that place. You know, just pull up, take the butt of your gun, break my window out, and pull me out of it. Because that's really all you wanted to do. You see, all this other fluffing around that ain't got nothing to do with what's going on. I know you stormtrooper of death. I know what you want. So it's the same thing a lot of times when some of you ask me questions, like it's the same exact thing. I know what you're saying. I know what you're getting at. You don't understand what you're doing. Just like when those stormtroopers do that. You don't understand who you're talking to. You don't understand that I'm more intelligent than you. With your 24 credit having ass. You know? You don't understand that I see right through what this is. You don't even know what the damn badge that you're wearing means. You don't even know what the word police means. You don't even understand the position that you're putting yourself in right now by trying to go against me or offend me. I understand it better than you do. You see? So it's the same thing when sometimes working with people, y'all get a little frustrated because it's like, I didn't ask that question. F your question. Your question it ain't about nothing. This is what's really going on. You see? Like young butterfly, I fly, just asked me, "Peace, Chief. Can we know when your birthday is?" Right? That's what she just put in the chat. I saw it, but I ignored it. But I'm gonna mention it. And then, you know, Spirit Driven, of course, says, "Great question. I bet he's 47 years old." You see, now you think I would answer any of that with all of that damn buffoonery? You think I'm gonna give that answer? I know what's really being asked. You know, sometimes people will try to pull you out into a certain place to transfer. You know, I tell you. Okay, so we're going to get out of here, but let's see. Empress. Now, you told me how to pronounce before. Empress B. I'm not going through all this with you today because I remember she posted one time before. I think I said her name wrong, but I think it's you. Said, "Bingo. This is why I stay in constant confusion with people because I refuse to answer pointless questions. I'll ask a question to make them think." Yeah, there you go. And then I'm going to tell you that the answer beyond that. And that's a good technique. I taught y'all about that before. Asking. Stay asking. You know, you ask me something stupid, you know, or you know, you go to court, do you da 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 da? Do I have to answer that by law? You know, you just respond with questions, you know. But the better way to even stay out of that confusion, Empress B, is to stay away from people like that. See, that's the next level. Cut those people off and then get a better quality of people to be around. You see? Okay. Al Campbell says, "People stumble and fall trying too hard not to stumble and fall." True. Exactly. True. Instead of just going with the flow. You go with the flow sometimes, man, the fall will be interesting. I'll tell you something that happened one time to me years ago, and I used to do personal security. And we were on a movie set, and there was like this junkyard like next to where we were filming with all this glass and stuff, right? I don't know why I was walking across. I think I was just going to one side of the set and to the other doing something. And as I was walking, I tripped, and I never trip. Like I've tripped literally like 2 times in my life. Each time it's funny because when I trip, it's always a big trip. It's not like I'm just by myself and oh, okay, cool. It's always like the first time I tripped, but I didn't fall to the ground or anything, was in the middle of Times Square on a date. You know what I mean? I recovered, but it was just like, come on, man. It's mad people out here, you know? And then the second time was on the set of this film. But what happened was, and it was so much glass and stuff, like I wasn't even thinking about the trip. I ended up going into a roll. Like as soon as I fell, I just rolled. Now, I don't know if you guys know, like if you ever seen a martial artist roll, like, you know, when we go down on the ground and then we roll and then pop back up. So I did that, right? So when I got to where I was walking, the guys who were over was like, yo, what are you doing? Showing off? Like they thought I just did a roll to try to show off. They didn't realize I actually tripped because it was just so smooth, right? And I was like, no, I just tripped, but my body automatically just went into a roll. I didn't even think about it. I just kind of went into a roll and protected myself, you know? So a lot of times when you just go with the flow of sometimes even your failure, you'd be surprised, man. It allows you can keep successively moving towards your actual goal instead of getting caught in the muck and mire and the thought of, man, I messed up again, man. This is embarrassing, man. So I knew I shouldn't have did that, and man, something telling me maybe the spirits are telling me this just ain't for me, and you know, or trying to go into denial about it, which is the other thing. You know, nah, it's cool, man. You know what I mean? Nah, it worked out exactly how I want. No, man, you tripped. It's gonna happen. You know, sometimes you go with it, man. It could be real smooth, you know. Let's see. Esme says that means I'd have to become a hermit because my whole island is full of those people. Yeah, man, the island, man. Don't let me start talking on the islands, man. You got some of the islands is like being on a continent, man. In particular, the west side of the continent, you got some of the most ignorant people that you would ever imagine being around. Yeah, I know y'all don't want to hear. I know you don't even like to hear anything like that. It sounds so disrespectful, right? But the level of colonialism is so strong, it's ridiculous. You know, that's why sometimes you guys need to, like, I tell you, visit the continent. Everybody like, I'm gonna move to Africa. You better visit first. You know, visit and see if you can stand it. You know, when you go there and you, like, I was talking to a sister recently, she was like, oh, you always, you know, in Africa, I want to go with you one year because I just want to see she said, I just want to see the drumming and the dancing up close. I love drumming and dancing. I said, what? I said, the only drumming and dancing I've ever seen on the continent is either in a ceremony or drumming that I was teaching. And dancing that family I brought with me from here was teaching the family over there. But she was thinking like you just walk down the street and like people are dancing around fires and drumming and, you know, like, you know, giving birth to babies and holding them up to the moon. Like, that's just like, nah, man, I told her like, nah, everybody over there is a Christian. You know what I mean? So if you want to go to church, you can go to some church now. You can go to church, you know, and then outside of that, you have Muslims. So it's either going to be that you're going to be in the mosque or you're going to be up in the Catholic church, because it's not even like fire baptized Pentecostal like over here where you can almost play it off like it's a ceremony. Oh, wow. Look at that. I just got a message from my brother in Lagos. Wow. Yeah, look at interesting timing. I haven't spoken to him in a minute. But yeah, so you know, a lot of times I tell people visit first and then see if that shock of that alone you can deal with that. And then, you know, but yeah, so the islands are like that, man. You know, but again, like the answer is just get somewhere where there's the type of people that you want to vibe with. It ain't that hard. Because you could spend a lifetime, man, trying to wake people up that are happy where they're at, you know, and then you just frustrated, and that's just you being ass backwards when you could just put your efforts into being in a better place. You know, it's real simple. All right, so we're gonna get out of here because the men's call is literally in 5 minutes, and I don't want to step on it. All right, because the brothers have been making some good products, but progress. Excuse my language, but yeah. So you know what you're working on, what you're thinking about, psychic identity theft, and pay attention to all the times you superimpose or try to transfer your emotions / spirits into another, and how often people do it to you. Pay close attention to that, and then make a determination as to, you know, how you can stop, you know, and those unreconciled feelings, how you can begin to deal with those in a very real way. All right. And of course, we're gonna get into it more. You know, like I said, first show we always keep pretty light. Why are y'all wishing me happy birthday? What is that even about? Let that go, man. Let that go. I'm not gonna tell you my birthday. Let it go. Nobody knows my birthday. You know, shoot. Let it go. And it doesn't matter anyway. What you wishing me happy birthday for? I didn't do anything. I just slid out. My job was easy. You know, my mother did all the work. I just kind of, you know, I just glided. You know what I mean? I'm smooth. I just glided out. I mean, my head probably was, you know, I used to tell my mom, man, I feel for you, man, popping this thing out. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that was all the work, but nah, man, I'm too smooth. No, don't worry about it. Yeah, so asking about my birthday, man. That's for the mothers, man. So let me give that to y'all. You know, your birthday is for your mother, man. It's not for you. You didn't do anything. You know, you caused the problem because you know, when you were in that unseen world, you said, yeah, you know, let me come on down there and make some things happen. You know, and you implanted the idea in your father's head, and your mother was taking some food out of the oven, and he looked and was like, that's mine. That's all mine right there. Look at her. Look at that thing over there. Yeah. And next thing you know, 10 months later, she's over here screaming and going off. Yeah, like Kirikou, my aunt brings up. Kirikou came out real cool. But she, the mother, put the burden on him right away. You know, he came out, said it. My name is Kirikou. All right, well, if you're gonna name yourself, then we're gonna put the world on your shoulders. You know, but yeah, man, it ain't got nothing to do with you, man. That day is for your moms and for all the women in your line, man. You know, that's your opportunity to go out and really have fun, especially for those of you who are not initiated. Use your Earth days as a time, like, you know, a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but yearly, we usually celebrate our initiation date. It's like a birthday for us, those of us who are initiated, right? But your birth is a form of initiation. So that's an opportunity where you can like make a lot of food for your Agoon and, you know, have the drinks out and candles, a party, whatever it is, you know, because all of those millions of Agoon who channeled in order for you to be here, man, that's to celebrate. But you didn't do nothing except for cause problems, you know. So, you know, yeah, man. So just give that some thought. All right. Okay. So let me just scan up real quick. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think y'all are good. Y'all don't need any more. And I got too much stuff to do today. All right. So I'll speak to you all next Sunday. All right. Until such time, be well. Ventures, if we want to call it that. And hey, you hear me shouting out Cape Coast Market underneath my helmet. But a lot of times I find myself in some very beautiful and interesting places, and sometimes even some wild places, which is one of the reasons why I prefer to ride motorcycle over, you know, car, whatever. And because you can just you can dip and dive real quickly and real easily. Sometimes I might be riding down the road and see a path going, up in the bush, and I just boom, make a sharp left, a sharp right, and find myself somewhere real interesting, or just real bushy, whatever. But either way, somewhere unexpected. So I said, yeah, man, I had footage for a long time, and showed some of the family back home, and just now I'm releasing some of these little flicks and stuff, and images and videos, and I have tons and tons of them, for the people who are here, for the family who's here, who are contemplating going over. A lot of times we're shown certain images and given a certain impression that it's just inaccurate to keep us from going there. You told about the profundity of all these different diseases, and all these different epidemics, and all of these different attacks and instability, and it's just, honestly, it's not true. If it were, I would tell you. So a lot of times there are little techniques and things that individuals will do to keep you away from what's yours, to keep you away from something that could be really beautiful for you, and from connecting and creating bonds, lifelong bonds, that you could enjoy for a very long time. So this is just like a little short clip. It doesn't really show all of it, all of what the continent could be, but it's just like a little, I was on motorcycle, just really going to the market. Actually, I think this run it was some years ago, just going to the market and getting some things, to fix up and everything like that. So um I don't have a helmet cam, so I just one hand recording with my phone while I'm riding. I know it's kind of crazy, but um that's just how it is over there, man. You innovate, man. You learn to make things work, man. If you want to do something, having something, shipped to your house, on Amazon next day, Prime service or something, it's just not really a reality right now in certain parts, of the continent. So you learn to make things work, man. And there are plenty of resources around to do whatever you need to do. So this was just like a little thing I filmed real quick. Like I said, just riding through the towns, riding down the street, just enjoying the day, and running some errands, and wanted to share it. But as a part of Our New Life Global Ministries, many of you know that there's a lot of things that we do all over, not just locally, but abroad as well. And there are things being built, and I've even spoken to some of you about, traveling over and seeing some of the works, and some of you actually already have been over and seen some of the things that we're doing over there, and even met some of the youth that we sponsor and things like that. So and you're still in touch with them, so you're creating those bonds and those family linkages, and it's something going forward that I'm going to open up even more to the right kind of people to come over, because one thing about the continent is that it amplifies everything that's going on with you. So if you're not right, you'll be super not right. It's a very fertile place. And when we speak about its fertility, it's not just, obviously you can see all the greenery. It's not just in its ability to produce crops for physical sustenance, but its ability to produce and magnify and amplify all of the things that are currently in you. So, and especially certain parts, the energy is higher than others, so you go to certain parts, man, and you have a lot of isms that you're bringing, or just a lot of hangups, and you're going to have some really profound and prolific experiences, and they may not all be pleasant to you, and they may not all be pleasant for the people around you, because a lot of times once you get into that space, all of the demons that have become very comforted by the dysfunction of American and Western culture are not comfortable over there. They start coming to the surface and scratching and itching, and you're looking for certain vices that you cannot find there. You don't have an abundance of sugary sweets and all of the different things, and all of the abundance of the type of drugs and stuff that we have such easy access to, you know, in the Anglosphere or in Western society. So a lot of times you have to deal with your stuff. You come face to face with it, you know, spending enough time there, not just passing through as a tourist, you know. So like I say, for the right type of people and the right ones, definitely opening up that space and letting the fam see what we have been working on and what's in store for them. All right. So I hope you all just enjoyed this little flash. You know, of course, this is a, you know, we're starting off Chief Speaks, and I just figured I'd give this as a nice little intro, you know, something a little different. And of course, this will be on my page as well, which is my Chief Yuya YouTube page. It's youtube.com/Sons of Sankofa, and Sons is with the letter Z. All right. But if you just look Chief Yuya on YouTube, you'll find it and find me and other videos as well. All right. So let's get on with it.